Okay, Rabotai, we are on Daf Yud Aleph, Amud Aleph. In the English, it's 11A-3. Avram Chaimov, you can put yourself on mute just because I think you're not on mute. Go ahead. Okay, Tana Rabbanon. At the bottom of 11A-3 on the left side, Tana Rabbanan, Ein Ma'berin et Hashana, Elim Ken Yirtzeh Nasi. In order to extend the year, in order to add an extra Adar, even though you need 7 judges to do it, the Nasi, the president, the head of the Sanhedrin, has to agree to it. The Nasi has to agree to it. Umaaseh Rabbi Gamliel, there's a story that happened with Rabbi Gamliel. Shahalach litel reshut etzel shilton echad shebesuriya. He went on a mission to speak to the governor of Syria. At that time, the Romans split up Israel, and Syria and Israel were under one domain, and the governor of that domain lived in Syria. So Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, he went. Rabbi Gamliel went to this general to ask him permission about something. V'shahalavo, and he was delayed from coming, meaning he came back. And they made the extension of the month on condition that Rabbi Gamliel would agree. Meaning when he came back was already Adar Bet, right? It wasn't Nisan, but rather Adar Bet. So, and they did it on condition that he will agree. When Rabbi Gamliel came, he said, I agree, I want it. Nimsa Shana Me'uberet. So it turned out that the year became a leap year. So from this Gemara, it says, imagine Rabbi Gamliel came back and said, I don't agree. What happens then? So then it's not Adar Bet, it's Nisan. So the Meiri says that when the Nasi comes back, we tell him to say he agrees. So it's a technicality. You need him to agree, but we don't really give him much leeway to say it's not going to be Adar Bet, and now it's going to be Nisan instead. We don't give him that real permission to. Technically, if he said he doesn't agree, then it will become Nisan and not Adar Bet. But we don't let him do that. We kind of tell him he has to say it's Adar and not Nisan. In fact, the Meiri says, imagine he came back after Pesach. I mean, not after Pesach, but he came back the 16th, the 17th of the month. So they made it 17th of Adar Bet, right? He comes 17th of the month and says, no, it's no longer Adar Bet. I never agreed to an extension. It's Nisan. What happened now? Pesach passed, according to what happened, and no one kept Pesach. Everyone ate Hametz on Pesach because they thought it was Adar Bet. So the Meiri says, in this case, we definitely don't let the Nasi say that it's not Adar Bet. Rather, he has to agree. So it's just a formality that he has to say, I agree. But once they do it, he just has to say he agrees. I was thinking about it just now, and basically from last week's Gemara, we learned that the Nasi invites the judges to come discuss it. So the Maisa, if he invited them, it means he was on board with it. He was thinking about making it happen. So obviously, if they decided on it, he was going to agree to it. Okay, that's the first piece of Gemara. Now, we're going to come to the next Gemara. All right, so little Hakdama, little introduction. Today, we have a calendar, a 19-year cycle. And in the 19-year cycle, you have the 3rd year as a leap year, the 6th year as a leap year, the 8th year as a leap year, the 11th year, the 11th year, then it's the 13th year, right? 17th and 19. Is that 6, 7, or did I skip? Again, 3, 6, 8, 11. What's 11 and 13? 11 and 3 is 14. 14, 17, and 19. During those years, in the 19th year cycle, that's when we have an extra Adar. Now, it'd be surprising to know that during the times of the Beit HaMikdash, the reason we always say we add an extra month is why? In order to make Pesach fall in the springtime, right? You're going to know that the Beddin, the Sanhedrin, had permission to make an Adar Bet for different reasons entirely. And we're going to see what criteria they needed to have in order to make an Adar Bet. So, Tanu Rabbanan, Ein ma'aberin tashana, ela in ken haytat tzicha mepnei hadrachim upnei hagesharim. You're allowed to extend the month, make an extra Adar, if the roads and bridges are ruined. Basically, you had the winter, and now you have potholes everywhere, and the bridges are no good. So you have to fix them up. Why? Because everyone's going to come up to Yerushalayim. You have a lot of traffic, and all the roads are no good. People are not going to make it on time. People are not going to be able to be Ola Regel to come up to Yerushalayim. Therefore, if the roads are no good, the rabbis say you can extend the month. So this is one reason why why a Beit Din can extend the month. The roads were no good, and that reason is enough to extend a year. And if the ovens to cook the carbon pesach, to roast the carbon pesach, the oven has to be roasted, an oven to roast it, they were made out of clay ovens. And if it was a lot of winter during the rain could have ruined the ovens. So if the ovens are not ready and require repair, you're allowed to add on an adar in order to give time to repair the ovens in order to roast the carbon pesach. And that in itself is enough of a reason to make an adar bet. Or another reason by itself why you would extend the month, make an extra month, is if Jews outside of Eretz Yisrael wanted to become Ola Regel, they started traveling, and now they're stuck wherever they are. They weren't able to get through. And we see they're not going to be able to make it in time for Pesach. So therefore, we can go ahead and add an extra month to give them the time to make it up to Eretz Yisrael. So those three reasons are enough of each one is enough on its own to extend the year and make a leap month. Reason one, roads are damaged, bridges are damaged. Reason two, ovens are not ready to cook to roast the Pesach. And reason three, people who are becoming oil regel from outside of Eretz Yisrael and they got stuck and they're going to make it in time for Pesach, you can extend the month to give them time to make it. Malkil, you had a question.
What's the minimum amount of people that they could finalize this decision to add another month? Is there a few people, a few families, or
you talking about traveling, the folks from outside of Eretz
Yisrael?
Yeah,
they said if they're delayed, we could add a little bit. How many people? What if it's some of them?
It's a good question. I didn't see anybody bring it down. I didn't even think about it. It's a great question. It says in Pnei Galil Yisrael, people from outside of Eretz Yisrael, I guess. He says here in the note, the report heard that such travelers were late on the road and would not arrive by Pesach, they would extend it. You're asking what's the how much, right? You're asking how much.
Yeah. They could have just come for Pesach Sheni for people who couldn't do it then, no?
Right. So obviously,
just add that.
So obviously, if it's one or two people, we're not going to do an extension, right? The question is, at what point do we make the extension? Tough, hey, difficult. You saw the hey. He doesn't bring anything here either. He says here from the Meiri that even if just a little bit of people didn't come, you can still extend it. You can push it off. Okay, so the Meiri says even for a little bit you can push off. I don't. Doesn't give a number. Doesn't give a number. Okay, fine. Taner Rabbanan, good question. Taner Rabbanan, ein ma'abirin et hashana lo mipnei. Did I skip? Oh, I did skip. Aval lo mipnei hashelik, not because of snow. Just because it's snowy outside, you don't push off and make another adar. But lo mipnei hatzina, not because it's cold outside, you don't push off to make another adar. V'lo mipnei galiyot Yisrael shelo akaru mimkoman, and you do not push it off even for people who live outside of Eretz Yisrael who didn't start moving yet, meaning they're still home and they cannot make it in time because they didn't start traveling. You're not going to go ahead and add an extra adar at this time. You only add an extra adar for the Jews who already started leaving and now they got stuck and they need more time. Then you'll add a month. But people who didn't even move yet, we're not going to say, oh, they're not going to be able to make it because they didn't start moving yet. We don't add a month for those people. Taner Rabbanan. Now we're going to come to another list of criteria. These lists here, we're going to see is not good alone. They never good alone of a reason in order to extend the year. However, they will be used as an auxiliary reason, as an additional reason to extend the year, not in itself. What are these reasons? We don't add on an extra month because of the goats or because of the sheep. What's the story here? Simply, Korban Pesach has to be a goat or a sheep that's under 1 year. Now, in order to eat the Korban Pesach, you have to register for it. You can't just show up to the Seder. Everyone has to be registered on that Korban. And everyone has to eat a minimum of a kazayit. However, everyone wants to have a meal from that Korban Pesach. So you want to have you have a large family. So you want to have an animal that many people can eat from. So you try to get a bigger animal. It has to be under a year. So as long as it's close to the year old, it will be bigger than it was if it was 9 months. So the Gemara says just because the animal is small is not reason for us to say, let's give it another 4 weeks, let it get a little bigger, and then we'll have more meat for Pesach. You can't do that. You can't extend the extra Adar, just because your meat is not ready, because technically, halachically, as long as everyone eats a olive volume, eats a kazayit, they are yatsa, their din of eating Korban Pesach. Therefore, they don't need to extend the month. I'm at the hospital, so you hear the code being called. All right. I don't have to respond to it. You're fine. Okay, one reason. And not because of the doves that have not yet matured enough to fly. What's this talking about? When a woman gives birth and any person becomes tummy, after they become tummy, they have to bring a special korban, and part of that is bringing a bird. And the bird, depending on the bird, some birds have to be under 1 year old, under before they can fly, young, and some have to be mature that they can fly already. So the doves have to be already ones that can fly. Now, you're not a lot of them, so you might think they're all young, they're not flying yet, and we need to bring this korbanot. And people didn't bring it right away when they became tahar. If you lived far away, you waited till you become oil regal, till you come to Yerushalayim for the holiday, and they would bring it. So if there were not enough doves, you might think, let's give it 4 more weeks. They'll start to learn how to fly, whatever. They get older, and then we'll be able to bring them. So we don't add on an extra month for that either. Aval osin otan sa'at l'shana. However, we will use them as a side factor, an auxiliary reason, when we're extending a year. So now I'm going to explain something the Gemara is going to say soon. The Gemara is going to tell us, all right, let's just look at it this way. I want to tell you this now so it's easier to understand all the Gemara. There are 3 categories of when you would extend the year, make an extra month. So the first 3 that we learned about were the rabbinic one, which was if the roads are not clear, ovens are not ready, people are not going to make it in time. One of those reasons is more than enough in order to extend the year. Then we have another 3. Now these 3 are Torah reasons, the Torah reasons. But in order to extend it, according to most opinions, you need to have 2 out of the 3 reasons in order to extend the year. What are these 3? A, if the seasons are not matching, meaning it's going to, Pesach's going to fall in the winter or whatever. 2, the wheat is not ripened, right? The grain is not ripened. And 3, the fruit is not ripened. I'll deal with the Bikurim and Yom Tov Shavuot would be a problem. So in order to add an extra Adar, you would need 2 out of these 3. Either the season is a problem and the wheat's a problem, or the fruit and the wheat's the problem, or the fruit and the season is a problem, and then you can add on. But now what the Gemara said, if you had one of these 3, the wheat wasn't ripened, everything else, season is good, fruit is ripened, but now you have one of these reasons that the sheep is young, or the sheep is young, the goat is too young, or the birds are not old enough, right? So now you can use one of these Torah reasons with this auxiliary reason in order to add on a month to the year. That's what the Gemara is saying here. How did this happen? Rabbi Yana said, let me give you an example. The doves are too small and the lambs are too thin. They don't have enough meat. And the wheat has not ripened. Aviv means that the wheat has not ripened. So here you see it says the wheat wasn't ripened. That's the Torah reason. We need to have two reasons: wheat, fruit, or season. But we only have the wheat, and we have the problem with the sheep not ready to be not so big. And it's proper in my mind, in my opinion. We're going to add 30 days to the year. So you have the one criteria from the Torah, the wheat. You have the other criteria from the auxiliary reason that the sheep is not ready. This is enough to extend the year. Okay. So far, so good. Everybody on page? Good. Now, Rabbi, this is Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Some question?
Right now, we're just dealing with the second part because all the first part doesn't apply anymore, which involves one reason.
Right. That's a separate criteria. So you can extend the year for those three criteria, each one separately, or you can extend it for these three criteria, or this one, two out of the three, or one with an auxiliary reason.
But the first criteria doesn't apply these days, and since we don't have the temple.
Today we don't extend it based on any reason. We extend it based on the seasons. The calendar is based on the seasons. That's why we extend it today, nowadays. Not because of the wheat, not because of the fruit, not because of the sheep, not because of the roads, not because of anything. Today it's all really based on seasons. And that's how they made the calendar, based on mathematics of how the seasons would play out. Because every season is 91 days and a couple of hours based on the solar and lunar year. That's the way it worked out. In fact, the Rambam, just because you mentioned him, the Rambam says, that's why I said most Rishonim say you need 2 out of the 3. That's what the Gemara says. The way the Rambam learns the Gemara, the Rambam says no. Seasons, because of the season is not going to match, the tekufa is not going to match, that in itself is enough reason to always extend the year. Even on a hunger year, even in a Shemitah year, even every year that the Gemara says you can't do it, he says if it's because of the seasons are not going to match, spring and summer and all that, then for sure you can extend it. So that's the Rambam. We'll get to it. Now, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel said he adds on 30 days to this month. He's adding on a full month, 30 days. Meitvei, kama ibur hashana. How many days is the extra month? Shloshim yom. That was what the Tanna Kama said, 30 days. But Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, Amir Chodesh, he said a month. A month is 29 days. So how come over here he's saying 30 days, where in another Braita he said 29 days? So Papa, no. What he means is as follows: Ratzu Chodesh, Ratzu Shloshim Yom. You want 29 days to be the extra month? 29 days. You want it to be 30 days? 30 days. It's depending when you see the moon, when the witnesses come, or whatever the cheshbanot is. It could be 29 or 30. It doesn't have to be 29. It doesn't have to be 30. It could be either or. That's what he meant. Now, here in this case, he said, in my opinion, Ushafarat miltab anpai. In my opinion, it's proper to extend it. The Gemara says, Tahaze ma'ika. Come see the difference. Ben takifei kadma'e, the haughty ones of the earlier generations, le'invatane batre'e, to the humble ones of the later generation. Okay, we're going to compare Rav Shimon ben Gamliel to his ancestor Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Gamliel was known as a very strickler. He was strict. He didn't let everyone in the yeshiva. He kicked people out. Eventually, they got so upset with him, they kicked him out. Then they brought him back because he was right, and he was with somebody else at the same time, being Rosh Yeshiva there, the Nasi. Everyone knows the story. Brachot. So he was very strict. We're going to see, but even though he was so strict and haughty and strong, he was actually more humble than the humble one, who they say that Rav Shimon ben Gamliel was humble. So let's see. The Tanya was told in Braita. The story that happened with Rabbi Gamliel. He was sitting upon a step on the Har Habayit, and Yochanan, the scribe, was standing before him, and they cut 3 scrolls for him to write something on. So Amrullah. So Yochanan said to the scribe, Rabbi Gamliel said to Yochanan the scribe, take 1 scroll and write to our brothers in the Galil, the upper Galil, and our brothers in the Galil who live in the bottom Galil. Same paper to both sides of the Galil. The shalom should be plenty for you. You should have a lot of peace. We're going to inform you. Zman bi'ura mata. The time of bi'ur has come. What is zman bi'ur? So all the ma'aserot that you have to give at the 4th year of the Shemitah cycle and at the 7th year of the Shemitah cycle, you have to make sure they're no longer in your house. So the first year you're supposed to give Ma'aser Rishon and Ma'aser Sheni to the Levi, take the other part to Yerushalayim, and the 3rd year you're supposed to give Ma'aser Oni. So let's say you didn't have to give it right away. You can hold on to it, but you cannot hold on to it past the 4th year. The 4th year, Erev Pesach, of the 4th and the 7th year, you have to get rid of it, give it away, and if it's Ma'aser Sheni that you cannot take up to Yerushalayim, you have to burn it. And at that time in Erev Pesach, you say a special vidui, special thing you say that you don't have any more ma'aser in your house, no more in your property. So he's telling them, Zman bi'ura mata, the time for the bi'ur of getting rid of all the ma'asrot has arrived. So make sure to give ma'aser from your olives. Why he said from the vat of olives? Because in the Galil, they were known mostly for their olives. It means for everything, but he mentioned olives because that's what they were most known for. Then he said, take another scroll, take another scroll and write in it, to our brothers of the south, you should have a lot of peace. We hereby inform you that the time of Biur has arrived. Make sure to take from the sheaves of the ears of grain, from the wheat, from the barley, from the grain, make sure to give the maaser. They were known for their grain, for their wheat, their barley. So he said to make sure to take it from there, but it applies to everything. Take another scroll and write to our brothers in Bavel, living outside Israel, Eretz Israel, and to our brothers in Media, and to all the Jews all over outside of Eretz Israel. You should see forever peace. We hereby inform you that the sheep, the doves are young and the sheep are lean. They don't have enough meat on them. And there's not enough grain. The grain hasn't ripened yet. And it's proper, in my opinion, and the opinion of my colleagues, we're going to add 30 days to the year. So now what the Gemara is trying to zone in is that when he said it's proper to do it, he didn't say my opinion only. He said it's proper in my opinion and the opinion of my colleagues. That's what Rabbi Gamliel said. He was supposed to be the strickler. Whereas Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, he just said my opinion without mentioning his colleagues. And he's supposed to be the humble person. So you see the difference between the stricklers of the previous generation and the humble people of this generation. That's what the Gemara wants to say. But the Gemara says, not necessarily. Dilma batar da abruhu. No, this has happened after Rabbi Gamliel got deposed as the Nasi. They kicked him out. And then they brought him back. He was now sharing the post of Nasi with another person. So now, so he said, it's my opinion and the opinion of the other guy that we say extend the year, because now it wasn't him alone. Therefore, he said my opinion and the other opinion. Otherwise, he would have just said my opinion. So no proof from here that the earlier and later generations, their humbleness is different. Taisus Rabbinu Peretz gives a different answer. And he says, but Tad Ibrahu means that after he came back, meaning Rabbi Gamliel was away when they extended the month, and then when he came back, they said, oh, we extended it on condition you agree. So he says, okay, you already extended it, I agree. So now he says, it's my opinion and the opinion of my colleagues, because they're the ones who made it. So I agreed, now it's my opinion too. And that's why he said what he said. Again, no proof that he was more humble than his descendant. Yes, Malkiel.
So who was more humble there? Who's in this Gemara thinking was more humble?
No proof.
His father, Rabbi Shimon's father?
The Gemara wanted to say Rabbi Gamliel was more humble, but the Gemara ends up pretty much saying that there's no real reason that he was more humble, because it might have just been the facts on the ground that he either was sharing the post of Nasi with somebody, or his colleagues did it with him. They made it the extra year, and then he came back and they said, "Do you agree?" He said, "Yeah, I agree." So no real proof from there. Okay, fine. Now we're going to come to the three Torah reasons of why we would extend the year. That you would need two out of the three reasons, according to most Rishonim, in order to make the leap year. Tanu Rabbanan, al shalosha devarim ma'avirin et hashana. Because of these three things, we would extend the year, make a leap year. Al ha'aviv, if the wheat, the grains, any grain is not ripened. Va'al pirot ha'ilan. Now, what would be a reason if the grain is not ripened? Why don't we want to make Nisan if the grain is not ripened before we move on? Okay, so you have to remember there is an Isser of Hadash. You're not allowed to eat the new grain. So if I make Pesach and the wheat has not grown yet, hasn't taken root yet, right? So then you can't eat it for the whole year. So you have to make sure Pesach is once the wheat already grew, because then you're not going to have what to eat. You need the grain to grow. Any grain that grows after Pesach, you can't eat till the next Pesach. That's what Hadash and Yashan is all about, right? For us, Sfaradim even applies today, right? You have to wait till the day after Pesach in order to be able to eat from the new crop. So imagine you made Nisan and the wheat's not ready. So therefore, you have to wait till the grain is ready. That's one reason. Va'al pirot ha'ilad, and the tree of the fruit of the tree, this will mess up when you bring bikurim. You're supposed to bring bikurim on Shavuot. You really have up to Hanukkah, and you could bring it on Sukkot. But again, if you mess up the timings, the fruits are not ripened. It's going to mess up all the timings. You're not going to have the fruit be able to give it at the right time. The al hatekufa, and because of the seasons, if the seasons are not in order, this is going to be a problem. So therefore, the three Torah reasons are on the wheat, on the fruit, and on the season. Now the Gemara says, as we're on 11b2, al shenai mehen me'abirin. You need to have two of the three reasons. Va'echad mehen ein ma'abirin. And if you only have one of those reasons, we're not going to extend the year by a month. Ubezman she'aviv echad mehen hakol semechin. And when one of the reasons is because the wheat is not ripened yet, everybody's happy because now they're going to have what to eat. Otherwise, if you would have made Pesach before the wheat was ready, you're not going to have what to eat the whole year. You're going to have barley to eat maybe, or oats or whatever, but not wheat. Now this statement is a very enigmatic statement. It's very puzzling. No one knows what this means. Because of the season. Because of the seasons, that's what he says. Is that Malkiel? Okay, you're back. Okay, Malkiel, I'm sorry you missed. So we're just going to repeat outside what the Gemara said. The three reasons because of the wheat not ripened, the fruit is not ripened, that will mess up when you bring the kurim. And the third reason is because of the seasons. And the Gemara said, when it's because of the wheat, everybody's happy that they had to wait, because this way they'll have what to eat during the year. So Akol Semechin. Now, Rav Shimon Gamliel now says a very strange statement. He just says, Rav Shimon Gamliel Omer, Al HaTekufa, because of the seasons. Nobody knows what he means. So Ibailahu, they asked, what did he mean? Did he mean Al HaTekufa Semechin, because of the seasons people are happy? That if one of the reasons is that they're extending the year because of the seasons are not matching, everybody's happy? Or did he mean, or Al HaTekufa Ma'abirin, because of the Tekufa, because of just the seasons being the issue itself, that's enough of a reason to extend it. Is that what he meant? And the Gemara says, Teku, we don't know. Tishbi Yitaretz Kushot Uvorot, Eliyahu will come and tell us. So the Gemara ends off with a question: did Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel mean that it's enough to extend the year by a month just because the seasons don't match? Based on this, the Rambam says this is what Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel meant, and this is the halacha. So the Rambam goes saying that anytime a season is an issue, and Rambam says even further, the Mefarshim explained the Rambam, he says the whole wheat not being ripened, And the whole fruit not being ripened is really dependent on the seasons. If you're in the right season, everything will be ripened at the right time. So he says, because of that, seasons is something you always would use as a reason enough, an alone reason to extend the year. That's the Rambam's psak. And I think that's pretty much what we go with, as the Rambam says. Okay. Tana Rabbanim. So far, so good. Everyone's good? Fine. Tana Rabbanim.
Rambam is Eliyahu Navi.
What?
Rambam is Eliyahu Navi in the situation.
Yeah, the Rambam had to make a decision, the halacha, what to do. And
it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense.
Actually. It makes a lot of sense. It does. It makes the most sense if you think about it. But the other Rishonim argue with the Rambam saying the Gemara doesn't mean that. The Gemara said teku. The Gemara said don't know. So how can you decide?
What kind of approach do they want to have? Two out of three?
You need to have 2 out of 3, like the Gemara said. 2 out of 3. And this only applies for Torah reasons. For the rabbis' reasons, rabbinic reasons of the roads, you only need 1, and you can push it off. So it's very interesting, the whole setup, how it works here. Tana Rabbanan, Rabbis Torah and Braita. Now, when we said the wheat isn't ripened, how do you decide that? How do you decide the wheat's ripened, the barley's ripened, and how do you check? So we have to look at the 3 parts of Eretz Yisrael. Yehuda, the Ever Yarden, the Ha-Galil. The Galil, Yehuda, and the Ever HaYarden. So here, I don't know if you can see this well, but on the top you see it says Galil. So the Galil was in the north of Eretz Yisrael. You see where it says Judea, that's the south of Eretz Yisrael. And on the side there it says the Transjordan, that's the Ever HaYarden. So the 3 areas in Eretz Yisrael that you would look at. These 3 areas resemble the 3 different climates that existed in Eretz Yisrael. So Al Shetayim Mehen Ma'abidin. If in 2 of those places the wheat hasn't ripened, so then you're going to extend. That will be a reason to extend. But if just one area, just let's say Judea, or let's just say Galil, one of those areas, weren't ripened. But if only one place wasn't ripened, we do not extend. It has to be 2 of those 3 places that need to have not ripening in order to use that as a reason to extend. And when Yehuda was one of the 2 places that were not ripened, and therefore you extended it, everybody was happy. Because the best place to get the omer from, when you bring the korban omer, the barley, the best place to bring it was from Judea. Judea was the closest to the Beit HaMikdash. So when you brought the barley from Judea to the Beit HaMikdash for the korban omer on the 2nd day of Pesach, it would be the most freshest and nicest. If I had to bring it from the Galil, it's going to take me a while to bring it, and it's going to get dried out on the way. People were happy if they had to extend it because of Yehuda as one of the places, as it would help bring the korban in the best possible way. Tanu Rabbanan, rabbis learn in the Braita. En ma'abirin hashanim ela beYehuda. We don't extend the year except in Judea, only in Yehuda. The Yerushalmi says, because of the pasuk Ki mitzion tetzet Torah udvar Hashem Yerushalayim, everything comes out of Yerushalayim, so therefore you have to bring it out from there. The Gemara here is going to give a different reason. If they did it outside Judea, it would be considered an extra month. So you have to really do it in Judea, closest to the Beit HaMikdash. If you did it outside to another city, the Gemara says it's fine. However, there is one opinion that it's not fine. Hananiah, the man from Ono, said, Im iburaha beGalil, if they extended the year in Galil, it didn't work. It has to be done in Judea. It's not done in Yehuda, it's not done in that area, it's not considered an extension of the year. What's the reason of Hananiah from the man of Ono? He says, because it says, Amar Kra, it says in Pasuk, Lishchono tidrushu uva'ata shama. Till this dwelling place you shall seek, and there shall you come. Kol dirisha sha'ata doresh. Anytime you're investigating a matter that affects the community, lo yiyu ela bishchanosh makom. It has to be done next to the dwelling place of Hashem. It has to be done in Yehuda, where the Beit HaMikdash is. So that's the way Hananiah Ishano learns. However, he's one opinion. Therefore, the halacha is and was practiced when the Sanhedrin was exiled from Jerusalem. Sanhedrin went to Yavne and they went to other places. And they did, from my understanding, at least in the way someone told me on Shabbat, was they did extend the years outside of Yehuda. That's the way someone told me that was an historical fact. Tanur Banan, the rabbis taught in a Braita. The decision to extend the year by a month has to be taking place during the daytime. You cannot make that decision at night. And let's say they did extend it at night. You might say, oh, it's okay, it happened. It does not work. Meaning, if you said there's an other bit and you decided at night, there is no other bit. There's nothing. It's already Nissan. That's it. Because it needs to happen during the daytime. And then the Gemara adds on, and you do not make Kaddish the Chodesh except for the daytime. Rosh Chodesh was sanctified in the Kodesh during the day. Salman, you have a question?
To clarify that point again, if they miss the timing, it's going to be too late, like 24-hour thing.
If they said it at night that it's the new year, or they said at night it's the Rosh Chodesh, it didn't do anything. In order to sanctify the Rosh Chodesh or to make a leap year, you have to make that decision during the daytime.
What's going to happen the following day? It's going to be too late.
If they were the last day of Adar, right? It was the last day of Adar, and now it's the so it's the nighttime, right? And they said it's going to be Adar Bet, right? But during the day, what's it called? They didn't say anything. Then the next day becomes Nisan, not Adar Bet.
So they cannot do anything retroactive then after that.
Right. It has to be done during the day. They had the next day to do it at, because if you do it at night, you can really do it the next day. But they didn't do it during the day because they thought the night worked. Then it wouldn't be an Adar Bet. It would be Nisan the day after, the night after. Yeah. Now, this thing of the Rosh Chodesh only can be sanctified during the day. We have a very practical halacha based on that. The halacha is that a person missed Ya'aleh V'Yavo in his prayer at night on Rosh Chodesh. Not talking about Chol Moed, not talking about Yom Tov. Talking about Rosh Chodesh. The person missed Ya'aleh V'Yavo at Rosh Chodesh and Aravit. He doesn't have to go back, right? Correct? Everyone knows this? What's the reason of this? Because you're not Mekadesh Chodesh at night. You never sanctify Rosh Chodesh at night. You sanctify Rosh Chodesh during the day. So in the daytime, if you missed it, you have to go back. In the nighttime, if you missed it, you don't go back. And you're not allowed to go back. And that applies to both nights and to both days. So both days, if you missed it, you have to go back. And at both nights of Rosh Chodesh, it's 2-day Rosh Chodesh. If it's 2 nights, if you missed it, you do not go back. Based on this concept that you not make Kaddish the Rosh Chodesh except during the day. And if you sanctified it at night, you didn't do anything. What's the pasuk? It says, blow a shofar at the moon's renewal, when the moon is covered on your holiday. What day is the moon? What holiday is the moon covered? Usually we have the Yom Tov on the 15th of the month. Pesach, Sukkot, you have a full moon. What holiday we have where it's not a full moon? There's no moon at all. Which Hag is no moon. Everybody knows this is Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is Rosh Chodesh. It's the beginning of the month. Rosh Hashanah, there's no moon. It's still growing. It says, it's a decree for Israel, a judgment for Yaakov. Ma mishpat bayom, so it compares it to judgment. Now, ma mishpat bayom, we already know that judgment has to happen during the day, based on a pasuk in Devarim. Rashi says, ma mishpat bayom, the judgment has to happen during the day. Av kiddush hachodesh bayom, So too, in order to sanctify the month, it has to happen during the daytime. And just as the month has to be sanctified during the daytime, the year adding on a month also has to happen during the daytime. That's what the Gemara is leading to. Tana Rabbana. And Ma'abarin Tashana. We do not add a month to the year. Bishne Ra'avon. At the time of hunger. Why don't you want to add a year during, add a month to the year during a hunger year? Because people have no food, right? So whatever grain grew, you want them to be able to eat it faster. If you're going to make Pesach later, there's going to be a longer time that they can't eat the new crop. They have to wait till the Omer is brought in order to eat from the new crop. So we don't want to extend the year by a month, make people wait 4 more weeks to eat grain that grew already, whatever small grain that grew during the years of hunger. So therefore, you don't add a year, you don't add a month to the year during the years of hunger. The Rambam would hold, if it was a seasonal issue, you would. That's what he holds straight down the line. If it's a seasonal issue, you always would. Tanya, Rabbi Omer, the ish bami bal shelisha, le'yavel isha Elohim, lechem bikurim, esrim lechem seorim. And the pasuk continues on the side. You can read in Torah Shalom. So what happened over here? A man came from the place called Shalisha, and he brought it to Elisha. He's the man of Hashem. He's the Navi. He brought him the first of the bread made from barley. So what? This is proof that you don't make a leap year in a hunger year. What happened? Historically, this was a hunger time. There is no place that grows faster than this place called Baal Shalisha. Nobody knows where this place is. There's different arguments where it could be. Some say it's Yericho, some places, different places in Eretz Yisrael. And yet, only one grain was ready, was ripened, which was barley, because that's what they brought him. Maybe you say it was wheat that was ready. It says in the pasuk Seorim. Maybe you'll say he gave it to him before the Omer, so no, he didn't actually eat it. He just made a carbon out of it. Talmud Loimer, Elisha said, give it to them to eat. So it must be the Omer was already given. So Acha Omer Haya. So why did they extend? Why didn't they extend the year? If only the barley was ready, why did they right away make Pesach? They should have extended till the wheat was ready. So Acha Omer Haya, Emor Me'ata, Re'uyah Hayata Ota Shana Shitit Aber. Really, that year should have been a leap year because the wheat wasn't ready. But we're playing Malo Ibra Elisha. But why didn't Elisha wait? Sheshana Batzoret Hayata. It was a year of hunger. And everybody was looking for food. So whatever food they had, they wanted to make mutar already. So therefore, they didn't make a leap year that year. Elisha didn't make it into a leap year because it was a hunger year. So they wanted to make whatever food was available as soon as possible for the people. So far, so good? Okay. Tan Rabbanon. Ein ma'abirin hashana lifnei Rosh Hashanah. You're not allowed to say that the year is going to have a leap year before Rosh Hashanah. And if they said before Rosh Hashanah that it's going to be a leap year, it's not going to be. If it's a very pressing circumstance, Rashi says the government is interfering with Jewish traditions and the court and the Beit Din, so they may not be able to meet later. You can add on the month already, let people know that you're going to add on the month already right after Rosh Hashanah. You only add Adar. We don't add another month. Let's say, let's make 2 Shvats, let's make 2 Tevis, let's make 2 Kisleys. You don't do. The only month you could add is Adar in order to keep the month count in place. Otherwise, because the Torah tells us in the 7th month you have to do Rosh Hashanah. So if you're going to throw in a month somewhere else in the middle, in the wrong place, it's not going to be the 7th month, it's not going to be the 9th month, it's not going to be the 10th month. It's going to be messed up. So therefore, you have to keep everything in order. So only Adar is the one that can be added on. Now, the Gemara says, Aini, is this really so? Is this true that only from after Rosh Hashanah? Hashachul Rava. The rabbis sent a coded message to Rava. The Persians were in charge at this time, and they had some trouble. So the rabbis didn't want to send the message straight up, so they coded it. So let's see. They said, Zugba merakat utfaso nesher. A pair of scholars came from Tiberia, and they were captured by the eagle. The eagle representing Persia, as it represented Persia in Daniel's vision. And they had in their hands stuff that were made in luz. What was the stuff made in luz? Techelet. They had the techelet strings for tzitzit. Because of Hashem, and in their zechut, yatzu b'shalom. They came out peacefully from their capture. That was one part of the message. Then they give another message. And the officers of Nachshon, which means from Yehuda, right? Nachshon is the Nasi of Yehuda. Bikshu likboa netziv echad. They wanted to add on another officer. Netziv means officer. They wanted to add another officer. Now, officer over here, netziv, is a code word for month. And we're going to see how we got to that code word later. But But the Romans, didn't want to say Persians, so they said Romans didn't let us appoint the officer. But we anyway gathered. We somehow managed to gather. And we added on another officer, another month. In the month where Aharon HaKohen passed away. Now everybody knows Aharon HaKohen passed away in Chodesh Av, in the month of Av, which is way before Rosh Hashanah. So how could he have added an extra month in Chodesh Av? So the Gemara says no. They never added it in Chodesh Av. Chashuvei mechashuvei. They made calculations in Chodesh Av. They agreed that in Chodesh Av they said we're going to make this year a leap year. But galuyei lo megalu. But to let people know, they didn't let them know until after Rosh Hashanah. Reasons why you're not supposed to tell them before Rosh Hashanah is you tell people too much in advance, they're going to forget. So therefore, you have to tell them not too much in advance. So after Shana is the earliest time you can tell them. So they, even though in Chodesh Av they decided, they didn't let the people know until after Shana. My mashma. Now, what indicates the ha-natziv l'shna derchahu, that a natziv, an officer, is a month in the year? How do we know this? Because it says, Shlomo Melech had 12 officers in charge of Klal Yisrael, and every month one of them would have to supply the money for the palace, basically tax collections, I understand. And he uses there Netziv and tells us 12 months of the year. So you see that Netziv is in place of a month. It says also over there, that there was one more officer. So if you tell me each one means a month, what are you doing with this extra officer? Well, extra word Netziv. So Yehuda Rav Nachman, Chad Omer Echad Memuna al Kulam. One said it means that there was one officer in charge of all the other 12. Chad, the other one says, Kenegin Chodesh HaIbur. No, you want to know what it was? The 13th Netziv is for Adar Bet. So Shlomo Melech had 13 officers. One of them worked every couple of years in order to make sure the taxes would be given on that 13th month. We're going to learn one more piece. One more piece, and then we'll stop it over there. Tanur Banan, rabbis taught in the Braita, Ein ma'abadin tashana. We don't add a month into the year. Lo mishana lechevretah. Not this year for the benefit of another year. Basically, we don't say let's extend it this year because next year we want it to be at a certain time. No. You extend year based on the year. When they did it in the Mikdash, they did it year by year. It had to be year by year. You don't start planning this year for what you need next year. And you never can do 3 years one after the other. What would be the problem with doing 3 years one after the other? If you're adding on a month, 3 years in a row, right? What's going to happen is you're going to be setting the calendar too much ahead. Be a problem. Pesach's going to be way off again. So therefore, you can't have 3 years in a row that you're adding months. You can never have 3 consecutive years of having of a leap year. Amar Reb Shimon, Ma'aseh Reb Akiva, but there was a story of Reb Akiva. Shayu Havush B'Beit Al-Sunim. He was incarcerated in prison. He was thrown into jail. Ve'iber Shalosh Shanim Zu Ahar Zu, and he made three leap years, one after the other. So you see, he did make leap years after the other. Amalai, the rabbi said to him, "What are you? That's not the story. Shamraya, that's not what happened. There's no proof from there. Betin yashvu b'kavu ahad bizmana. The story is that Bedin did everything at its time, meaning they went to Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva gave his opinion. He said, based on the calculations this year and then that next year and the year, 2 years and whatever, he made his calculations when, what. He decided everything that day. And then he said, that's what you should do. But now the Rabbanan, the Chachamim, the Bedin, didn't do what he said. Instead, they, they looked what he said, but then every year they decided based on the needs of that year. So if we take a look at the note, in note, what note is this? 32. In note 32, they bring two ways how to learn. The one way to learn, Tanakama, if you look through the middle, Tanakama says a court may not extend 3 consecutive years, even if they proclaim each leap year as it comes. Rav Shimon says Rabbi Akiva extended 3 consecutive years from jail. He assumes Rabbi Akiva was jailed for at least 3 years, and he personally proclaimed the 3 leap years from jail. Tanakama says Rabbi Akiva did not actually proclaim any leap years. He merely determined when the next 3 leap years should be, so the rabbis would know when. There's no reason that he told them to extend 3 consecutive years. So again, he just told them when to do it. He didn't tell them which years to be done. The second explanation, the Tanakhama said, your court may not calculate leap years in advance. They must make the calculation during the year which they wish to extend. So you can't even calculate, according to the second opinion. But Shimon says Rabbi Akiva was in jail and he calculated 3 leap years at one time. The Gemara says, yeah, true. He calculated 3 leap years, but the Chachamim did not rely on Rabbi Akiva's calculation alone. After observing his calculations, they reconvened during the years that he said should be, and based on their own calculations, they then would extend it.
Which note again, Moshe?
12A3, note 32. 12A3, note 32. Okay, this is what we're going to get up to for today, Be'ezrat Hashem. So I think the biggest thing to come out with is you had your 3 categories of the reasons why you would extend, and the Rambam's idea that seasons always play out. The next Gemara, if you take a look, the next piece of Gemara talks about not to extend a Shemitah year, because Shemitah year you cannot work on the ground, so you don't want to make an extra month in Shemitah year as an extra month that I can't work my ground, I can't work my fields. But here an example straight for you. This year is an Adar Bet, and this year is a Shemitah year, right? Shemitah year in Eretz Yisrael. And yet we are making an Adar Bet. According to the Gemara, it says you can never do that. The Rambam says no. If it's based on seasons, you have to do that, because you have to keep the seasons in check. So that's an example of the Rambam's principle of Tikufa always takes precedence over everything else. Fine, Rabotai? All right. We'll end it here. Tonight, we're going to have a share again at 8:30. Continuing in the Hilchot Purim. Okay? Malkiel, I know you missed a few minutes over here, but you'll have the recording. I'll try to get it up as soon as possible, okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Shavua Tov, Salomon, Abraham, we appreciate your attendance.